Let's call the meeting to order. We've got two more bills that just passed out of public health that I think copies are being made, and we're going to try to get those out to you. I do intend to take those up at the end of the meeting. But the first bill on our agenda today is, can everybody hear me okay? All right, Senate Bill 2018, the Telephone Solicitation Act. Many of you that were here years past know that we passed this to stop all the calling to your home phones and your cell phones, and this certainly sets up fines. All this is doing is extending the repeater on it from this year to 2025. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Title sufficient, do pass.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next bill, Senate Bill 2474. This is I'm going to say a simple change, but many of you will remember that we passed a bill, sometimes referred to as BSATA, which cut out the transfers from agency to agency that we would charge. We have made special exceptions to that for various agencies to charge for pass-throughs. We want to include the language that you see starting on line 32 that will allow agencies to charge as it relates to the new medical marijuana program that's been instituted under Initiative Measure 65. So if one agency conducts work on behalf of that program, they can charge through to the Department of Health because that's the only entity that's collecting money. That's what this bill does. I'm happy to yield to questions. If there are none,
Title sufficient, do pass.
the motion is title sufficient, do pass. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I'm going to skip Senate Bill 2540. Senate Bill 2547, this is a bill that has passed universities and colleges. It is a committee sub. There is, if you look at the proposed committee sub, and let me find it. There is language in section 1 that is created, and I'm Senator Parks here. Yes, I'm going to ask her something momentarily. I think the program right now, Senator Parks, correct me if I'm wrong, is that to get into the nursing program, you have to have a 3.5 or a certain ACT score. And this would say that if you maintain that GPA, you don't need a certain ACT score to get into the accelerated nursing program. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. One question I have for you, I noticed just before the meeting that this stands repealed on July 1, 2022. Was that intended?
Yeah, what it was intended to do was allow during the COVID time that it would allow a larger population of nurses to come into the program. It would just have that opportunity since we are facing a shortage.
Okay. The remainder of the bill is scheduled to take effect July 1, 2022, and I'll explain it momentarily. But I want to make sure that our dates aren't overlapping and creating any issue being created by that.
And we can extend that date. It's not a...
Council, do we need to extend this date on page 1, line 22?
Yeah, I believe she wants section 1 to be effective July 1, 2021.
Okay. I got you. So you want this effective this summer, July 1, 2021?
Right.
Do you want a repealer date in that or not?
No.
Okay, so the amendment on line 22 would be this section shall take effect July 1, 2021. Any questions about that amendment? If Senator Hill. Can you hit your mic, please? Thanks.
So you're allowing section 1 to take effect on July 1, 2021. Would it still stand repealed on July 1, 2022? Do we just want it in there for 1 year, or we want it permanently?
Okay.
I'm suggesting for 1 year or 2 years.
I agree. I agree. So I just want to make sure that it still repeals in a year, that we're only taking these ACTs out during the pandemic.
Let me ask Senator
Sure.
Parks, because this was your change in committee, I believe. Did you want this to repeal after 1 year?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that we're clear on what you intend, and I'm going to get you to make a formal motion. You want the repealer to still be July 1, 2022. Is that right?
Correct.
So we'll get that corrected. And then council has advised that we ought to have the repealer on section 1 placed at the very end, at the beginning on line 430, where that section would take effect. Section 1 would take effect July 1, 2021, the remainder of the bill 2022.
That's fine.
So that's going to be Senator Parks' motion, correct?
Correct.
All right, questions on the motion? Senator McClendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one question on it. How does this compare to the doctors? And the only reason I'm asking this is because nurse practitioners are trying to change their scope. So does this have any effect comparing to the doctors? Do the doctors do the same thing, or?
I
No,
don't think so, but I'll let Senator Parks.
no, this is strictly just for the nurse, the BSRN program.
So we're lowering the requirement for nurses?
We're removing the requirement that if they maintain a 3.5 GPA, it will not matter what their ACT score was several years before.
This is gonna go back to you.
Thank you, just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Senator McClendon.
Well, it's there, so we'll go back to you.
If there are any more questions on the motion, Senator Parks?
I've just been, council has just made me aware that if we put this amendment in at this time, it would have to come back to my committee. Can
you
I
meeting- are
amend
you-
this on the floor? Would you
Sure.
agree with that?
Sure.
Okay.
So you withdraw the, will withdraw
I'll
the.
withdraw it,
mo-
that-
All right, the amendment, the motion to amend is withdrawn. Back on the bill, let me explain the rest of the bill. This is my bill, and it deals with the primary scholarships that we have for our IHL students and community college students in the state. Really, it's all students in Mississippi because this applies for all graduating seniors. The Student Financial Aid Post-Secondary Education Financial Assistance Board decided to accept, most of you have heard of the ACT Super Score. They have decided to start accepting the ACT Super Score, which means, in effect, that scores are going to go up. Students will be able to pick, if you made a 20 in reading, let's say you made 20s across the board, reading, math, science, and I forgot with English. Well, you can take the test again, and let's say you make a 22 in reading next time and a 23 in math, but the other two scores stay the same. You can actually take the higher score in each subject, and it's called a super score, and the ACT allows it now, and our post-secondary board has allowed it. My proposal, which would only take effect July 1, 2022, so you got a full year for people to understand this, even though we're going to have to pay the freight this coming year, it appears, is to raise the MTAG, which is our tuition assistance grant, from 15 to 17. You got to have that plus the GPA. You've got to have eminent scholars will go from 29 to 30, and the HELP program will actually stay the same. It won't affect HELP, but the HELP will be based on a single test score as it was before. Okay, so that's not changing. The two that will change will be MTAG and MESG scholarships. And Corbin was good enough to print for me something that we're dealing with. Y'all remember about a week ago, we took up a deficit of about $6 million additional, and we added money back in the session last year for financial aid. And we're already looking, based on the way things are going for this coming year, before any of this takes effect, at roughly an additional $14 million in financial aid. So we're going to be taking on a big burden if we're going to meet the needs of all the students in financial aid. And I think this is not an attempt to gig anybody. This is just an attempt to try to keep everything's kind of at a level playing field, particularly as it relates to those two scholarships. That's the remainder of the bill. I'm happy to yield the question. Senator Hill.
With what you're saying about the ACT Super Score, that they're going to be able to choose their highest scores from each sub part of the ACT, I think the minimal amount you're raising it is probably not even going to cover the influx that we're going to have from people being able to choose their highest score from each subset. So I think it's very rational to do this because, I think the scores are going to raise more than what you have in here by being able to pick the highest subset and then get an average on that. So I appreciate what you're doing because this is going to really bombard us because it's going to really pad the scores and let kids' composite go up substantially.
Yep. Yeah, I think, yes, that's right. Statistics show that it will. Yeah, other questions about it? Senator McCon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess we're looking around lines 206, 218. I see where you've upped the score to 30 is that going to be just regular high school? But on number 3, it shows that the score can remain at 29 for homeschool. Is there a reasoning that's not consistent?
No, there's not. Now,
I-
I'll entertain a motion. I'm sorry, I didn't pick that up.
I would have a motion to make that consistent, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you heard the motion to move that to 30. Any questions on the proposed amendment?
Well, that can be a floor debate. I withdraw my motion,
That's right,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah.
and I would defer to Senator Parks over there to resolve that.
I think Senator Parks may have to have another meeting. No, that's fine.
We keep
If
on.
you, yeah, if you, and if you please keep reminding me too that she does not intend to have another meeting. So we'll ask council to put that down as a recommended amendment for the floor. We may have a few amendments on this bill. That's 2 for sure. Thank you, Senator McCon. Senator DeBar, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're talking about ACT and ACT scores, and obviously there's been issues with the ACT being administered last year. And I think you were in the subcommittee meeting where Senator Parks chaired, where IHL was discussing waiving the ACT for the future, like to keep competitive with other surrounding schools and universities in our area. And so I'm wondering how this will affect if we're still going to base scholarships and so forth on ACT, and IHL is going to waive the ACT in the future, or considering it, how is that going to affect legislation and so forth? I mean, I don't think we can change anything now, but I thought as we go forward, that's going to be something we have to consider, especially if they're going to waive the ACT in the future, SAT as well.
Yep. I would think we would have to adapt to that. I have been advised that there may be some meetings in the off-season this year to discuss a lot of changes, potential changes to financial aid. I know that Senators Blunt and Harkin served on a committee with me for state financial aid about 1.5 years ago too, and there probably will be some changes, I guess, but this won't take effect until 2022, and so I'm more. Let me make it very clear that if there's some significant changes and things that happen in the off season, I'm more than willing to come back next year and let's see if we need to amend this again. I think the danger that we have in not going forward with something this year is we're going to have a lot of parents and a lot of students upset next year if they don't at least have a warning that there are potential changes. If there are no changes recommended by either the Post-Secondary Financial Aid Board or IHL or any other entity, EAC, any other entity that may deal with this, then at least we've got something in place right now that I think is appropriate for what we're dealing with. But if they come back and make another change, I'm more than willing to, step aside and say this is a better deal than what we're going to pass here today.
And I agree. It's got a 1-year repeal around it, so we're going to have to address it next year anyway. So I think anything that's determined in the off-season, we can come back and correct next year. So,
well, the 1-year repealer being proposed, are you talking about a different bill or this bill?
talking about Committee Sub 2547, this repeals on July of 2022, right?
No, that section of the bill will actually not take effect until July 1, 2022. Again, to give everybody a year's notice, we're going to have to kind of bite the bullet for this year. But next year, everyone should be advised that unless there's some changes made by next year's legislature, that we've got this in place.
Okay.
The only portion that we propose to change the repealer date on is the nursing program that Senator Parks has referenced, and that repealer will be offered on the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator DeBar. Senator Hill, you have a question?
I guess my question would be, whether or not IHL waives an ACT requirement or minimal score, that would not affect the other legislation that we have in place where the state pays for every high school junior to take the ACT, and for us to have some kind of measuring stick for us to determine who we're going to award the state money to. So even if IHL waived a minimum ACT score or whatever, that would not preclude these students from still being able to take the ACT as a high school junior that's free, what's from taxpayer money, so that they would have a reported score. And if they knew that the scholarships were tied to that, they would still be taking that test, correct?
That's correct. And again, I think we ought to keep ourselves flexible on this issue, because I sense there's a little bit of a wave of change on how this will be analyzed. But if there's little or no change to it, I think this is a good proposal. Look, people have even suggested possibly going up on the max for the MTAG more than what it is, and I may be amenable to some other changes on that. I don't think for MESG I would want to get much higher than a 30. That's a pretty strong score there. In help, if we stay level on help, that's based on a 1-score assessment. That's probably fair. If we go to super scores, then we'll need to look at help as well.
I guess my question would be, if we don't use ACT and we don't use some kind of benchmark, then how are we going to determine who we're going to award these state grants to?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we might start looking at GPAs or some kind of weighted average, but I think an ACT is probably as good as any tool we have right now to
I would
judge.
agree, and I would also say that that's probably the only test that our students take, other than the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP, where our students can be compared to another subset of students nationwide. That would be the only opportunity after the NAEP for our students to be compared apples to apples anywhere else in the United States.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that point, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Any other questions on the bill? If not, can I get a motion? Motion, title sufficient, do pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Moving on to Senate Bill 2602, I'm going to call on Senator Michelle to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 2602 has been reported out by the Insurance Committee. Would appreciate the Appropriations Committee keeping it moving, as it's one of our funding mechanisms for our rural fire truck program and also for fire apparatus and equipment grants. The best part of this legislation is that it takes no money out of the general fund. It's funded from the 3% not admitted policy fee on insurance policies sold throughout the state of Mississippi. You can see on line 70 is the gist of the legislation. That amounts to around $15 million a year. Commissioner Cheney tells me it's going to be close to $17 million in funds this year. It would divert $5 million of the funds to the Rural Fire Truck Fund, and it would divert $1 million to our Fire Apparatus and Protection Grant Program at the State Fire Marshal's Office. As you know, in our rural areas, this can improve the fire ratings and reduce our insurance premiums. And I'd be glad to yield any questions. I move title sufficient to pass.
Senator Wiggins has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, if I may take this chance, Judiciary A is supposed to meet at 2. We'll convene 5 minutes after Appropriations in room 409. Thank you.
So what's your question?
So, my friend, Chairman Michelle, so am I correct in that these non-admitted policies in some portion have funded the wind pool?
The whole fee right now goes into the wind pool. It amounts to on average, it's been around $15 million a year, and Commissioner Cheney thinks it'll be as much as $17 million this year.
Right, and so what this bill is doing is taking this $5 million out of the wind pool and sending it to the rural fire truck program. Is that right?
And $1 million to fire apparatus grants.
Okay, and do we know what the amount in the wind pool right now is?
We're waiting on the audited figures, but it's over $300 million currently.
Okay, so I think there are those who've expressed the concern that the wind pool doesn't want to be left in a situation if we had a catastrophic hurricane, which, judging by this past year, those things can come. Do we know the figures? Let me put it this way. By taking this $5 million out, are we left in a negative situation, if you will, if that was to occur?
No, it wouldn't be negative at all, because there's, of the $17 million, the remaining portion would still go into the wind pool.
Okay, negative was probably bad. Are we by taking the $5 million out, let's just hypothetically say that there was a catastrophic hurricane that came, let's say tomorrow or something, or July 2nd. Is there still enough money in that wind pool to cover the losses that we would need to cover in those situations?
Yes, Senator. In addition to $300 million in funds, they buy reinsurance, and there's over $750 million in insurance. To give you an example, this last summer was very active on hurricanes, and Commissioner Cheney said the total losses were around $90 million, but it only cost the wind pool around $15 million because there's high deductibles, 5% to 10%. So some of the policies, believe it or not, took no money out of the wind pool whatsoever. So that $90 million loss cost the wind pool around $15 million, which is less than we've been putting into the fund every year on top of the $300 million balance. Plus, that money's invested, earning additional revenue as well.
So,
And this is not the first time we've done this. We've
I
taken
know.
money and money for mitigation. As a matter of fact, the mitigation, the reason that one other reason it's been so effective is the money that's gone into the mitigation plan has helped people build their houses to stronger standards, and our losses are less than they would have been at the time of Hurricane Katrina.
right, and one of the things we've done is passed the statewide building codes, which has helped in that, and other thing. And so that was kind of my next question, which was those efforts. We're basically collecting more money than we need, if you will. And so the decision being made is to transfer this $5 million to help the rural fire truck program.
Yes, and this 3% non-admitted policy fee is up for expiration, basically. There's a repealer in the bill next year, and Lieutenant Governor Hoseman has asked us to have the insurance committee to have a hearing this summer, and we want to look at not only the non-admitted policy fee, but we want to also look at the State Fire Ratings Bureau, the Surplus Lines Association, the Rural Fire Program. We find that all these programs seem to be joined at the hip, and there's a lot of fees being spent in there that we think can be saved, and that might be one fund one way we can fund the hurricane mitigation program, and we might continue a fund for the surplus lines that would go into the wind pool as well. So we want to look at the whole program this summer, because this fund is not standing by itself.
Okay, and so I just want to be sure, and I think I know the answer. When our constituents from the bottom 6 counties find out that $5 million has been taken out of the wind pool, and these questions start asking, we can tell them, look, there's enough money in there, and we're going to be looking at this, next year, and we're not going to be in a situation where we're caught, with our pants down and not being able to fund our losses that happen.
Yes.
I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, and some of this money obviously will be spent in those counties as well. We make the counties participate in a match, and so we're able to make this money go even further than the $5 million, because the counties put up a portion of the money for the trucks. In some of your rural areas, there's no fire truck at all, and so this is a program that can help statewide and lower insurance premiums. I can tell you, it can make an effect of improving a rating from a 10 to an 8 by simply a rural area getting a fire truck.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wiggins. Senator Williams, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any numbers that state the amount of money that might be being saved in insurance premiums because of the availability of this program to the citizenry?
Yeah, it's a great savings to the rural areas, as I just mentioned. The difference in your ratings, the improvement on the ratings from having a rural fire truck in your area that can get to you in a certain period of time can improve your insurance premium and prevent a total loss from occurring.
We don't have any estimates of what that actually equates to that we're saving the citizens in insurance premiums?
Don't have a what? Excuse me?
I mean, if you didn't have this funding going there, it's safe to say we would probably have lower insurance ratings in some of these areas.
Yes.
So as a result of this, we've got economic savings to the people.
Yeah.
That number would be great to know.
Yes, and this is money that is you're not taking it from the wind pool, because basically it's a fee that the non-admitted policy carriers are paying, and it's being used. The reason this fund was set up was because at the time of Hurricane Katrina, the companies that wrote policies in Mississippi were assessed huge amounts of money, literally to stay and write business in Mississippi. The non-admitted policies, non-admitted insurers are out-of-state providers, and this was the way they came to the table to bring money to the table by adding a 3% fee on each policy sold. So this is their contribution, where the local policyholders and the policies from the local insurers paid at the time they were assessed by the insurance commissioner. I think it was $500 million.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Not.
Our motion was titled sufficient due pass.
The motion is titled sufficient due pass. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next on our agenda is Senate Bill 2854. This is a DPS bill. This is one I'm basically keeping alive right now. It keeps the code sections alive on salaries for DPS officers. I do have a reverse, I think I've got a reverse repealer in there. If not, I want to get one added. I don't have one. Oh, yeah, the committee sub does have a reverse repealer. Yeah, I know, right, yes. It's already got a reverse repeater in it. Any questions? If not, motion, title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We've got two other bills that are added to the agenda. They come from the Public Health Committee. First is Senate Bill, I'm looking for the one on the food bank, Senate Bill 2426. I've got three people in the room who could probably speak on the bill. Senator Jackson, this is your bill, I believe. And then I've got Senator Parker and I think Senator Boyd are all in here. I'll go by seniority. Senator Jackson, anything? Senator Parker, you want to give us a very brief summary of this bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make it very brief. It has 3 sections in there. All of them have to do with food needs in the state. The first one would establish the food bank program that would allocate food based on need for the 3 facilities that serve that need. One is on the coast, one is in Jackson, and one is up in the Batesville area. The second section of the bill creates a SNAP Healthy Food Incentive Program, and what this would do is SNAP recipients would be able to, by purchasing healthy food, be able to get more food. So if they go in and they use that SNAP benefit to get some healthy fruits and vegetables, they would get a little extra coupon program that would allow them to go back and add to that and get more healthy foods. And then the final section of the bill deals with the problem that I've been working with the chairman on. We, in the CARES Act money, allocated a good bit of money to the food need in the state, and through some bid law requirements, the money was not distributed appropriately. So we are trying to fix that so that we can get this food need addressed in a timely and appropriate manner. But that's a brief explanation of the bill. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. And in the Public Health Committee, there was a reverse repealer added to this bill. So I think you've got a proposed committee sub in front of you that does not have the reverse repealer, but it does as it sits before us at this point. Questions on the bill? Senator Hill.
I see that we're offering incentives for people with SNAP to buy healthy foods by allowing them to get twice as much of the vegetables through one of these programs. I've filed bills a number of years to require those SNAP purchases to be from the 4 healthy food groups, which I believe would alleviate a lot of the health programs that we have with some of our recipients in the state who are on some of our health programs. Is there anything that precludes us from doing that?
Preclude you from just going to a requirement?
Just saying that this, this is a requirement. No Cheetos, no, whatever.
I don't know if there's anything that would preclude it. I'm just, again, others may speak on this more intelligently, but I would assume that some places don't always have the offerings that other places have. You go to some areas of the state and some groceries that may not have all the healthy foods. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, Senator Hill. I hope this is start something where those that are getting assistance start looking at healthier options, and it's going to cut down malnourishment. It's going to cut down food-related diseases and hypertension, high blood pressure, heart disease, some of those things that we lose people to early on and we spend a lot of money on. So I agree with your sentiments on that.
And my other question would be, we're mandating a grant program to food banks, certain food banks. So what is the criteria for somebody to utilize those food banks? I mean, how do we know that it's targeted at at people who are desperately needy? I just have some real questions about just turning over this amount of money without some checks and balances as to how they're going to determine.
Senator,
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that would just be my question is, You know, typically these things are a lot privately funded or through federal grants, and now we're putting state money in it. What has led to this? Just, is it inquiries from the food banks that they're running out, or?
Senator
Mr.
Parker,
Chairman,
you
if I
want to address
could.
that?
Yeah, that we have recognized, I think, for the third year in a row that Mississippi is going to be the state in the most need of food assistance. And we've also recognized that the federal resources that have been given to us have not played enough of a role in meeting that need. And so what this does is by setting it up and allocating it by these three regions, we've modeled this after what Tennessee did. Tennessee has been doing a similar program. They have more regions. I believe they have 5, perhaps 6 that they've used. And what they do is they base the resources going to those particular regions on the needs and different factors. So there is a formula in here that calculates that. And another thing that has been brought to my attention with some of the USDA resources that are spread across the state is, sometimes food banks and food pantries get confused. We have a large number of food pantries, but the food bank would be kind of the first level that then distributes it down to each of the food pantries. The food pantries then would take the resources they get, not just from this program, but also from the community and the churches and other civic groups that would also donate to the pantries. And the end goal is to make sure that the needs get to the people who have the greatest problem. But I'll be glad to give you more information on that. And Senator Hill, I share your sentiment. I would like with SNAP programs to get more people the healthy food that they need and that they deserve. And to Senator Hobson's point, I think this is a step in that direction.
Senator McClendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, I'd like to ask Senator Parker a question. Does this bill also help the local farmers markets to be able to distribute produce with those?
Right. And so any organization like a farmer's market is going to be a key player in this, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Turner Ford.
I'm sorry, I couldn't. They are in existence. Right now, for certain programs, are not used, I think, in distribution kind of appropriately, but they are the existing 3 food banks that serve Mississippi right now.
Is there issues currently in these food banks are not properly administering commodities or foods throughout the state of Mississippi?
Well, it's kind of interesting. We had another committee meeting today where I made a little mention of this, but with any distribution model, for whatever reason, the resources tend to be utilized greatest at the point where the distribution begins. And what I've found in discussions with people on the coast and people up in the northern part of the state is that often on food needs, the resources aren't reaching every part of the state appropriately. I know Senator Jackson has been working on this for several years, and I felt strongly, even though this was brought to my attention, I wanted it to be something that he's worked on and that we could work together on and get this through. But he can give you a little more information on what he's found in his district about that.
So, I understand the Gulf Coast would address the needs on the coast, those surrounding counties. The Mid-South Food Bank, what area is this?
The Mid-South Food Bank is in the Memphis area, and right now most of that food goes down to Batesville. So Batesville is distributing the Mid-South Food Bank food supply.
And Mississippi Food Network, that's based primarily here, is it based in Jackson?
Yes, sir. Yes, Senator.
So I guess if the program goes forward, my concern is addressing, I would say, maybe the northeastern portion of the state.
Right, and I know the gentleman I spoke with, who was a big advocate in putting this together in Tennessee years ago, he has that concern too. I think he's mentioned the 12 counties in that northwest, northeastern area are the ones who have kind of within our congressional district are the ones who are suffering in some situations a little bit greater. And I know he's an advocate for that. It's Mr. Asheville. Be glad to introduce you to him sometime and give you his contact information.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Moran.
So if I understand it correct, someone was telling me that you mentioned the
Mobile, the Gulf Coast.
the farmers markets.
Yes.
For those of us that travel south of Donna 6, the big farmers market on 49 South. So if they went there, they would and purchased fruit and vegetables, they would get a coupon to take back and utilize at a regular store at a later date to purchase more food, or how?
The way it's been explained to me
That's
is
how it
that
was
when-
explained to me this morning.
Right, when this gets put in place, the people who are using these benefits will learn that basically if they use this benefit for healthy foods, they will get to a point where instead of maybe grabbing one bunch of bananas, they would grab two. So they would take their benefits to check out, and in exchange for getting that healthy food, they'd be given an allowance towards more healthy food that in most instances they would go ahead and use on the spot. So it would be in real time, something that they would have to utilize.
That's what I
and
was
take
getting
care of.
at, was what type of allowance? Is it a coupon? Is it something you be used then?
Right, the
I guess I'm
intent
a
is
little
to
confused.
use it right away. And I think I've had a discussion with Senator Blackwell on this before. In a situation where you're checking out, there was some concern that, okay, you'd be given a voucher and then you'd have to do something. And, they're still working out the logistics to make this happen the best way. But the intent is to have them use that at that point and be able to redeem it right away.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Senator Parker, thank you for your work on this bill. I think it's a good bill. I do have a few questions. One of those is really the application of the flow of how this would work. When it was first explained to me, I was told that someone would come through the line, and let's say they had $5 worth of healthy food, they'd get a credit for it, or a voucher. They would then have to leave the line and go get additional vegetables. I do all the grocery shopping, and I get irritated enough when I'm behind somebody who's checked out and then they start digging in their pocketbook for a check or a credit card. So I know there's some logistic things to be worked out. I really see this working at farmers market as being ideal. But my really question is, and this is double referred, we're deadline days, so I'm not going to, don't want to do anything here, but would you be willing to have a discussion with me about some sort of audit trail with this program? The reason being
Absolutely.
is some of the abuses that we've uncovered in the recent past, just
Right,
to make
and-
sure we're as tight as we can be.
Yeah, and this, again, this is basically a combination of three concepts that have rolled together kind of at the last minute here. And so the reason it does have a reverse repealer in it is that I do anticipate that it's going to need a little more kind of polishing before we get a final product on it. So, yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Senator McClendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make a statement on sometimes the communities we live in, we don't think about others, but Quitman County has gone 2 years now without a grocery store, and they're just now receiving theirs. And they've been having to go to Batesville, Panola County, driving 30, 35 miles for groceries. So this will help the poorest of the poor in the rural communities. I am with Senator Blackwell. There must be checks and balances, as we know with all government, but I think it's a good bill. Senator Parker's worked very hard on, and I thank him.
Thank you, Senator. Senator McCon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a few questions on this, in that this was originally 2163 rolled into this bill. Is that right, the SNAP benefit? I think Senator Boyd was part of that bill. I've got some concerns here. We're saying that these people are going to go to a farmer's market to go buy things. the accessibility to the farmer's market and the accessibility to these vegetables and fruits, generally my farmer's market, my direct produce providers and growers, they shut down about, November after the greens are done, and they don't open back up till about June. So we're saying we want you to eat 6 months healthy, and then after 6 months, whenever they shut down, we don't have access to those locations. Are we hurting ourselves? Because generally the poorest of the poor are not going to drive to the country 30 miles out or 20 miles out to go and get those products. I've got some real reservations and concerns about that side of this, as those in downtown Jackson may or may not know there's a farmer's market at the Coliseum, or they may or may not know that they can go out of town to get it. They may not have that access to go to that location. So I feel like we're kind of hurting ourselves a little bit there, and that's a concern. Have you got anything to throw at me there, Senator Parker?
I would say the true intent is to get people who have SNAP benefits eating healthy foods. So I would be open to any and every location where they can use a SNAP benefit and get a healthy food, being a place that can use this. I think that's a great, valid point that requires discussion. And, again, that part of the bill was really Senator Boyd's part, and because we rolled three things into one, we've kind of, you got me answering questions that I don't have every answer for, but I think we can all agree that this is an extreme need, and we can work out the logistics of how to make that happen, but I do share those concerns.
The other question I've got here, what I read in Section 2 is eligible fruits and vegetables. Do we have a listing of that, or is that just whatever DHS decides to put out there on us? And I'm okay with Senator Boyd if she wants to answer that, Senator Parker. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I know these are questions.
That's what we're here for, to answer these
Right.
questions. And
I'm sure the people from, I think the American Heart Association could provide us a list on what those would be. I'll be open to your interpretation on where a tomato falls into that list, whether it falls into the fruit or vegetable
And I'd like to say
category.
that I'm very happy with the remainder of the bill. Section 2 gives me heartburn. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and Senator McCollum, for what it's worth, I've already talked to Senator Boyd about this issue. I'm not satisfied with the number of places and the location of the places where the SNAP program those that offer the credit right now. That we need to do some work on that. So I do want to keep the bill alive, but I think that needs some legitimate work, and I've expressed it to one of the folks that's supporting it on the outside too. Is there are a lot of holes. If you look at the map of Mississippi, there are a lot of holes that need to be filled in that regard. So as Senator Parker has said, a lot of work to be done, but we're heading in the right direction on it. Senator Williams, no question. Senator Hill, did you have a question?
Yeah, my question would just be, I think one of the lobbyists or whomever is wanting this bill had told me that there was currently 12 vendors, I think, that participated in this, and I would like to have a list, if y'all could, somebody could provide me a list of the 12 vendors and their addresses. And what it would take for somebody else to become a vendor.
Sure, they showed it to me, and you'll see there are a few down in the coast area, but I think it needs to be a lot more than what it is, and in fact, we may have to do something, Senator Parker, where if that's all we have right now, we may have to reduce the funds that are going to that program to start, and then let's expand monetarily as we expand the program, so that we don't pump a whole lot into just a few places. And I'm probably should be telling Senator Boyd, because that's her part of the bill. But anyway, that's I think we've discussed it pretty well. Any other questions on the bill? If not, the motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The final bill is Senate Bill 2221. This is another bill that's come to us from Public Health. This relates to a pilot program, three-year pilot program for dementia care. It's actually named, I didn't realize this until the bill came up in Public Health, it's named for an old friend of mine, used to be a neighbor in Vicksburg, but Jimmy Kegler. And Jimmy was a hospital CEO and had Alzheimer's and dementia. But I don't know how much funding we've got available for the program, but this certainly would provide some level of funding. I don't I've seen one proposal, it's higher than I think we might be able to afford right now, but I've received some other information that it's gonna be pilot, so it's one of those where whatever we've got would be a help. It may not be a whole lot of money to get started, but, it's gonna be subject to this committee's decision ultimately, and the legislative body's decision as to what's available to help support this program. If there are any questions about the program, Senator Boyd can answer those, but any questions? We don't know the money. Senator Moran's question is how much money, and there's zero money in it right now. And that's something that will have to be decided, because I'm not, at this point in the session, not prepared to commit any funds to it, but we'll see how things look. Yes, Senator Hill.
I guess my question would be, if somebody is qualifying for Medicaid, there are programs through the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services for some home care for Alzheimer's or blind people or any of that type of thing, and I've been able to actually link some people with some of those services. So I guess my question would be, is this for people who qualify for Medicaid or Medicare, or people that don't qualify for that, or what are the criteria of who's going to be able to benefit from this? Because I don't really see any criteria in here other than they have dementia.
I'll defer to Senator Boyd.
Yes.
You turn on your microphone, Senator Boyd.
This program is exclusively designed for people that do not qualify for those other programs, Senator Hill. And I believe, I'm trying to find the section of the bill language that is designed to do that.
I think I found it, lines 24, 25, down somewhere around in there.
Yes. So this is exclusively designed for those people because we have so many people that fall through the cracks and are not eligible to receive those programs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, motion. Title sufficient, do pass, committee sub. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to rise report. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Yes.